Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. This is Mel's Gaming here with another The Hunter Call of the Wild video. Now today's video is going to be taking a look at all of the trophies from the start of my 6th Whitetail Great One grind here on Rancho del Arroyo. As you guys may well know if you saw the video from a couple of days ago, I have started a 6th Whitetail Great One grind here on Rancho, so these are just going to be the first trophies that have shown up and also just going over a couple of cool clips and getting some practice with the challenge setup and shot that I have been set by a couple of people in Discord. Danny and actually Flinter set this challenge as well. I have to try and take my next great one with a neck shot from the 45 Colt. So, gonna see some footage of me actually practicing trying to get that shot, trying to see what the most reliable way to get a neck shot is. All of that stuff is gonna come later in the video. But starting off, you will have just seen me drop this piebald buck here, and this guy actually ends up being the first rare of this Great One grind. And it's nice that the first rare that showed up was actually a buck, and he is a decent size, but unfortunately not anything I'm going to keep for the trophy lodge, as I do have bigger ones. Unfortunately, I actually really like this rack, but it just doesn't score very high, but I do like the amount of mass that rack has. Maybe if I'm lucky I can get an even bigger piebald, maybe even a piebald diamond eventually, but for now that was a really cool start. Now, as you all have just seen, we do actually have a level 3 here, which ends up being the first level 3 of the grind. And I wasn't sure if this guy would make it or not, so picking him up here, and unfortunately he doesn't make it. He's a 251.90 troll level 3, and yeah, a bit of a shame for the first level 3 of the grind to be a troll. And honestly, I'm glad that this wasn't the piebald that I just shot, because that would have been absolutely devastating to get a piebald troll. And I have had a couple of troll super rares, and I'm still looking for my first ever super rare. So I'm crossing my fingers that maybe if I get lucky, one might show up on this grind. I know a lot of people have had super rares during their grinds, so maybe if I get lucky. But I also had to just include this clip of this buck. This is the wonkiest whitetail I have ever shot, and I was calling this the staircase buck, spiral staircase buck, because of just how twisty his antlers are. And honestly, it was just such a weird sight when he walked over. And that's, you can see I'm auto running into a tree here, because when I actually picked him up, I wasn't expecting him to look that weird. But just a really odd find on this grind. Now, there you will have just seen me drop the second rare of this grind, which is actually a piebald doe. Now, you guys might wonder, okay, why am I getting rare does? Well, my method is to shoot all whitetail that I come across, buck, doe, big, small, I don't care. If it's a whitetail, I try and kill it. So every now and again, I do get rare females popping up. Really isn't a worry or a concern for me. I don't mind a rare female popping up every now and again, but it's just one of those things that happens. Now, you will have just seen me there drop another level 3, and once again, I wasn't sure if this guy was going to make it, but I was pleased to see another level 3 popping up. But unfortunately, the first and the second level 3 of this grind both are trolls. And I was expecting this guy to troll, seeing as his upper estimate was 255, and 255 is diamond requirement. So he had a very slim chance of making it, and unfortunately he didn't quite make it, being a 253.70. But again, I'm always pleased to see level 3s popping up on these grinds. I'm not too fussed about them actually making diamond. I have well over 70 diamond whitetail in my trophy manager, so if they don't make diamond when they're just a common, it's not something I'm massively worried about, if that makes sense. Also ended up getting this huge level 2, a 254.20, and honestly I'm surprised that that wasn't a troll level 3. So again, just wanted to include that as that was quite an interesting find. Now, in the same zone where we shot that piebald doe earlier, I ended up having a albino whitetail buck spawn. Now, once again, he's not very big and isn't something I'm going to be keeping for the trophy lodge. And he has the really spindly looking antlers, which I really don't like on the whitetail. I much prefer the racks that have more mass, like that piebald buck from earlier. These racks where they're just so thin, I really don't like how that looks. They just almost look like almost paper thin in points, and it's just not quite as cool looking to me. But the albino whitetail are always stunning, so I was really happy to see this guy pop up. Always encouraging to see rares and level 3s actually popping up. And this guy is a little bit wonky as well, got some character in that rack, with one of his antlers almost sort of being sort of more turned in. Just a really interesting looking buck, but unfortunately he isn't that big. Like I said, if this rack had more mass, it would look a lot better, I think. Now, moving on to the clip of the actual first diamond of this whitetail grind, which I was so happy to see. You can see there, we have a level 3, he is actually running away, but as he goes through that vegetation, he actually stops, and I take a blind sort of shot there in the dark, and I was pretty confident it would hit its mark, and it did, and dropped him right on the spot. I got really lucky that he actually stopped there during his fleeing animation, and it gave me more than enough time to make a vital hit. Now, this guy is definitely a diamond, 264 scoring diamond whitetail buck, the first diamond of the grind, and I was actually really happy to see this. In my head, it's always encouraging to see higher scoring bucks, higher weight bucks turning up. It just makes me feel like I'm doing the right things. Because if these bucks are showing up, then surely if the roll or whatever spawns a great one, because a lot of people think that great ones spawn in place of a diamond. So if I'm getting the rolls to spawn diamonds in the random generation system that spawns these animals, then I hope that, in my head, I think, okay, maybe a great one could spawn at some point if I'm doing all the right things to spawn diamonds. I hope that makes some sense. I know it's a bit of a complicated way to go about explaining it, but that's just how it works in my head. Same with seeing rares turn up. It's, quite a rare thing to see because they are rare. So I think, okay, I'm getting good rolls. Let's hope a great one will show up. But now let's move on to the point where I ended up getting set a bit of a challenge. So a guy called Danny in the Discords that I speak to, and is also another mod for Flinter, actually challenged me to use the 45 Colt on a great one. And I thought that's actually quite easy, and I wasn't sure that I was going to do it. And then Flinter jumps in the chat and says, how about going for a neck shot with the 45 Colt and dropping a great one on the spot? Now, I'll be honest, I immediately sort of retaliated and said, you do that. You try doing that, because that's a very risky thing to do. Like, trying to go for a neck shot on an animal as rare as a great one is a very, very risky move. And so I was like, you try it. I'm not trying it. You do it. But something in me, when I get set a challenge like that, I have to go and try it. So I ended up having this little level 1 come into my stand as I was calling here. So I went for a neck shot just to see if it was actually possible. And obviously you can see the distance there. It's only 8 meters away, which is why he was about to flee, because that is the distance where animals will actually start to just flee automatically. But I did get through and get a neck shot. So I thought, okay, let's do some testing and see if I can actually start to reliably pinpoint a good point for a neck shot. So I go to this zone, I find a buck, and I actually drop him with a neck shot and then take one of the does just as they're about to flee as well with a lung shot. But that was a beautiful neck shot on this buck and dropped him right on the spot. And I also then learned if you place the shot in the right place, it will actually go through to lung. So if I miss the neck, there's a bit of like a safety catch there. And this was a bit of a, how do I say it? This thought and caused me to mess up more than I needed it to. So you're going to see me neck shot a couple of deer, which like I said in my community post, I will include some successes and some failures at actually trying to get these neck shots and just learn where the neck is in different situations. But like I said, I started to try and place my neck shots quite high in the neck, thinking, oh, okay, if I miss the neck, it'll get through to lung and then I'll be okay. And this ended up being the thing that caused me to then mess up in future attempts at a neck shot. So there's a level 3 here that showed up, and I go for that neck shot, and it doesn't get through to neck, but I see that he is actually starting to drop. So I was looking there just to see what kind of blood there was on the ground, and there was vital blood. So I knew it must have not got neck, but like gone through to the lung. And I was looking and I wasn't quite sure what had caused me to miss neck. So picking him up, and then we're going to take a look straight away, and you can see that I'm just kind of off just to the side a little bit, but it still got through to the lung. Now, I noticed that the higher up I was putting my neck shots, the more inconsistent they were getting. Because I don't know if you can see here, there's a point in that spine of this whitetail where the neck is almost it's completely disconnected from the rest of the spine. And there just seems to be an area where if you hit in and around that spot, it doesn't get spine. It won't get that neck shot. So it's like almost like a blind spot, and that is what caused me to mess up a couple of times, I think. Because when I was going for lower shots or higher shots, depending on where the whitetail is, lower if it had its head down or higher if it had its head up like this guy, I was dropping them every time. Even when, this guy was about to flee there, and I did actually still manage to drop him, placing that shot nice and high in the neck. So I started to get the idea, okay, maybe I need to place it higher or lower if they have their head down, which I challenged Flinter on one of his streams to go and shoot a whitetail, and I had to explain that if they've got their head down, I'm looking to put the shot lower because it's wanting to put it higher in the neck, and obviously when they've got their head down, higher is lower, if that makes sense. So I ended up having this guy spawn. This is a huge whitetail. I knew he was probably going to be a 270 plus, and I was expecting him to probably be max weight. But because he was a big buck, and because I wasn't at this point fully sure of what I was doing that was messing up, I placed the shot too high again. And as you'll see, he's running off. I start to panic, but he does start to lose health. So once again, I knew I must have got through to the lung. And this buck is where sort of I realised fully what was going on. Because when we actually take a look at this guy, you're going to see where my bullet is, and actually where the bullet path was really sort of made it in my mind, I need to be placing those shots lower when they've got their head down. So taking a look at this guy, he is a 270.7 scoring buck, nearly max weight, not quite max weight, at 99.93 kgs. So that was a bit of a surprise. I honestly did expect him to be max weight. But if you take a look at the shot, you can see exactly, well, I hope you guys can see exactly what I mean. My bullet's going where the neck should be, and that should be a neck shot, in my opinion. But it's going straight into that gap. And like I said, it's almost like there's a blind spot around that area, and if you hit around there, it just won't register. And I was looking at this sort of really in depth here, which is why I'm on the X-ray version, and I'm sat there thinking, okay, how can I beat this? Because yes, it's nice to have the fail-safe of, okay, I missed the neck, it's going to go through to a lung, but at the same time, is it actually worth doing that? Because there's no point, I might as well go for a lung shot if it's not going to go and hit neck because I'm hitting too high anyway. So it makes more sense to just go for a lower neck shot when they've got their head down, sort of more towards the skull, and go for that upper neck rather than go higher and go up into that sort of gap there. And I just thought that was a really interesting point, and this was a really sort of turning point in the grind for me. I was really happy to see a buck this big show up, and hopefully you guys can see what I'm talking about there on this X-ray view as I try to get some closer views. And it also really solidified in my mind what I needed to do in order to make that shot that I've been challenged to do. And I'm not the kind of person that when I get set a challenge, I'm not going to try it at all. And once I tried it and realised it was very possible, I now have to do this in my head. So immediately after shooting that buck, I waited for the rest of the herd to come back, and a doe gave me a really good opportunity at another practice shot. And sure enough, I placed that shot lower, boom, straight through the neck. And you're going to see some clips now of me just practicing that shot on different whitetail and just getting it in my head where I need to place that shot. Because obviously, you know, taking a shot like this on a great one, it is risky. Because if I miss neck, then it's going to get flesh and it's not going to be a good situation. So the more practice I can get in, then the happier I'm going to be actually attempting this on a great one. And this is my plan. I do want to do this when I find a great one. Well, if I find a great one. It's not when, it's if. If I'm lucky enough to find one, this is the shot I want to go for, and I want to aim sort of middle of that neck rather than too high and risk clipping the skull, or too low and risk going through that really weird disjointed gap. Now, last night, I ended up having a couple of really cool things happen. So, I actually had that 270 buck last night, and then not long after, probably a couple of hours later, as I was continuing to grind, I had this little oddity show up. A really low estimate, but a really big looking buck. But when I spotted him from a distance, I wasn't sure what I was actually looking at. It said level 3, but I just wasn't sure. And then I see him, and his rack is all, like, squished up and really tight. And, like, even if you look at him here, it's almost like his antlers have just been, like, squished. And it's a really cool looking buck. And one that I certainly haven't seen one like before, because these are definitely bigger rack antlers. So this was really interesting, and he actually caused some cool discussion in the Discord when I posted it. So, yeah, really interesting buck. Only scoring 259.10, but he is a max weight. Now, something about that is very exciting to me, because if you guys have watched any of my previous Great One grinds, you'll know that per every single grind I've done, whether it's for whitetail or red deer, before I get a Great One, I have always had a max weight. And I know that it's not like a requirement. You don't have to get a max weight spawn before you get a Great One, but every grind, for me, every grind I've had a max weight, and it's almost like a rite of passage for a grind now for me. I have to see that max weight, and then it sort of feels like, okay, now it can happen. So it's just an interesting thing, and I was so happy to see that guy. And then, funnily enough, this was the next lake I went to, and there was a guaranteed diamond level 3 whitetail here. And like I said earlier, I'm not fussed about getting more and more diamonds necessarily, unless they're like odd looking or maybe a rare. Like I said, if I could get really lucky, you know, more and more diamonds isn't something I'm necessarily worried about, but the more of them that show up, the happier I am, because it just feels like if I'm getting diamonds to spawn, I'm doing all the right things. And this guy is a diamond, 259 at 0.20, and again, managed to get that neck shot. I'm a little bit off to the side, but it still got through to that neck. And yeah, 2 diamonds there dropped with neck shots, which I was really happy with, because I want to try and drop every diamond now with a neck shot and just get more and more practice in with that shot. And maybe I go over the top, but I just like to make sure that I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't like to take risks. It's a risky shot to go for, so I know that kind of doesn't make sense, but you can sort of negate risks by practicing and making sure you know exactly what you need to do in order to overcome a lot of what makes it such a risky shot. So, lots of really good progress. We've had the first rares, the first diamonds, and the first max weight diamond, which, as I said, for me, that's like a milestone for every grind that I've done. So I'm really happy to actually have seen that. Last night, when I saw that max weight pop up, I was really excited. And honestly, I thought that 270.7 was going to be a max weight, but he was just, I think it was 0.7 kg under. So 2 really big bucks last night. Managed to sort of learn what I need to do with those neck shots. Like I said, if they've got their head down, I need to keep it lower, sort of above the skull, but not quite as high as it was before, sort of above that point where you've got that gap. I want to keep it below that weird gap in the spine, but above the head and just in that perfect opportunity that they give. But if it does come to a point where the Great One's got its head lifted and I've got no other choice, I think I can make that shot. I'm making as much progress on practicing that shot as well as I can. I don't really want to go for that shot. I'd much prefer a shot where it's got his head down drinking. So we'll have to see what circumstances we get if a Great One shows up, because they can be difficult. I've had experience with Great Ones in the past, and I had one that disappeared for 2 hours and was an absolute nightmare. So it will be really interesting to see what the situation will end up being. But that is my plan, to take a Great One with a 45 Colt neck shot, which I think will be pretty cool if I can pull it off. I think it will be quite an achievement. It's a weapon that I've never used on a Great One. I've never used a handgun to take a Great One, full stop. And I've never used a neck shot to take a Great One, so it's a completely new thing, and hopefully that'll be cool for you guys to see. Let me know what you think of that down in the comments. Thank you, Flinter and Danny, for your suggestion, and yeah, I hope it goes well. I hope if a Great One shows up, I can pull it off, and you know, like I said, I'm not one to not try something if I get challenged it. I've got to try and see if I can do it. So we'll see what happens. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope I haven't rambled too much. Hopefully you can tell I'm quite excited about all this. I really do enjoy actually grinding for a trophy like this. There's something about it that I just find quite exciting because you never know what's going to show up. I could have a super rare show up. I could have a really weird diamond like that max weight one show up. All those kind of things are just really cool to me. So I'm really stoked. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.